Okay, I think I've done it. Okay, well, welcome. Welcome everyone to our Destination of the Month webinar for February, all about Mongolia. My name is Robin, and I will be your host today alongside my colleague Amanda and our friend Boggy, who is on this call all the way from Mongolia. I am a custom travel designer here at Explorer X. We are a travel company dedicated to helping people travel deeply and immersively and live better as a result. And if you want to learn more about us, you can visit explorer-x.com. And I'm excited you all are here to learn about the incredible country of Mongolia. It's a place that's near and dear to my heart now. My husband and I spent almost a month there in the fall for our honeymoon. And it was one of the most epic travel experiences we've ever had. I honestly don't think we will ever be able to top it. And that's all thanks to Boggy, who is on this call today. But first, Amanda, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. I'm Amanda. I'm another travel designer. I'm just going to go through a couple housekeeping things before we get started. If you could all stay muted during the conversation. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And then we'll also have a few minutes at the end to answer additional questions. I'll keep monitoring the chat as we go, just in case there's anything urgent that comes up. As Robin said, we are recording, so we will send the recording out to everyone. So if you want to rewatch it or share it with someone else that wasn't able to attend live, we will be sending that recording around. I think that's all the housekeeping.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Amanda. And I'm thrilled to have our dear friend Boggy on this call today. Boggy is our go-to guy based in Mongolia and helps us plan these journeys of a lifetime for our travelers. Boggy, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and where you're based?
Good morning, everyone, and it's Mongolian time right now is 9:05 in Ulaanbaatar, and I'm 100% Mongolian, lives in Ulaanbaatar and born in northern Mongolia. And my ethnic background is Darkhat, one of those 20 ethnic groups in Mongolia. And born and raised in Ulaanbaatar, born in northern Mongolia, raised in Ulaanbaatar. And I work closely with Explorer X and trying to give the unique experience to the people, and and promote my culture and the nation in a different point of the view, because there are so many things, the hidden things in Mongolia. Mongolia is not known for the outside world as of travelers' destination. And I should mention travelers because Mongolia is a country for travelers, not for tourists. In terms of its logistics and vastness, Mongolia is a sea land. It's landlocked country, but it's so vast. When you drive in Mongolia, like you driving, the Robin you saw, Jesse, you guys driving, and you don't see anyone, any families. Maybe in the distance you can see small, tiny gear, which is, sometimes it's called a yurt, Mongolian accommodation. So anyhow, I'm representing today Mongolia, and I try to give you my country and my people's information as much as possible. And I will start a little bit about my country first. So Mongolia is sandwiched between two huge countries, China and Russia. And Mongolia itself, became a democratic and independent country after collapse of the Soviet Union, 89, and used to be, the satellite country of the Soviets. And early day, we used to have a joke: when Moscow farts, Ulaanbaatar got already diarrhea. So, it shows how we were depending from our big brother. Still, we're depending from economically, but we're trying to be the good sample between those two huge powers, the sample of the preferring the human rights and press freedom and religious and worship freedom. So if you look at the world map, Mongolia is sandwiched between in Russia and China, but the history of Mongols gave the big influence of the Chinese and Russian history. You know, it's amazing the fact when Mongols ruled the China and Russia, they made those countries as a state. Before the Mongols ruled, it was like China never been united until the Yuan dynasty. I mean, it was, you know, divided by southern regions, northern regions, you know, whatever. Then during the Yuan dynasty, which is grandson of the Genghis Khan, you know, he united the China as one country. And same thing happened to the Moscow. The Russian, they never been united one state, you know, until the led by Moscow, because, you know, why Mongols we make them united is because, you know, it's easy to talk to one guy instead of the 10 guys, and easy to collect the tax from the one guy instead of collecting 10 guys. So anyhow, that's the short story. And Mongols are different ethnic group, and we speaking Mongolian language, which is subdivision of the Altaic language group, which is another division called the Finno-Ugric. Mongolian language has more deep connection with Finnish, Estonian, Hungarian, and a little bit Turkish, and then Korean. A lot of people think when Mongolia it's in Asia, wow, you know, it's another Asian country, you know, maybe you guys understand Chinese, blah, 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 you know. But Chinese and Mongolian language is totally different group of the language group. And Mongolian is more related with Finno-Ugric, which is, you know, one of the ancient language group. And regarding with the language, people of Mongolian gene people is about like more or less like 7 to 8 million. Nowadays in modern Mongolia, 3 million Mongols live in modern Mongolia, and another 2 or 3.5 million Mongols in inner Mongolia, which is part of Chinese territory, but the Mongolian ethnic groups live there, and another probably 1 million, maybe less than 1 million Buryat Mongols live in Lake Baikal area. And then the rest of the Mongols spread in northern Afghanistan, in some part of the central Russia, you know, some part of the northwest North China because of the historical movements and historical fate. So more Mongols actually live outside Mongolia nowadays. So Mongolia is small nation, small country in today's standard, but it has very rich history and one of the like ancient cradle board of the Central Asian civilization. Also, nowadays, Mongolia is called the last cradle board of the nomadic civilization. If you look at the world map, nomadic civilization is left only few places, like few dots on the world. Maybe some little, you know, people in little number of the people in Middle East, like Bedouins, some in North Africa, maybe a little bit East North Africa, and then is Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, a few, and some in Turkmenistan, and big large number of the nomadic civilization is left in Mongolia because of the economy. Mongolian economy is based on, nowadays, of course, mining is number one, and second one is animal husbandry related economy. Kashmir, beef, you know, any products, you know, produced by animals, we use them. So because of economy, the nomadic culture is kept alive in Mongolia, and also because of the weather and climate, this is the only the way of the life is could affordable and could survive in this kind of the weather. Mongolian weather is we have 4 seasons, and we have the 4 seasons, and the central Mongolian, the average temperature in December is -30 to -25, and then is summer is, central Mongolia is 30 to 30, 32s. So it shows how the extreme difference of the climate and weather. So only this kind of animals could survive in Mongolia. And Mongolian, the altitude, the weather is like 4 seasons, and also Mongolia, the lowest landmark of Mongolia is higher than sea level. The Mongolian average, the central Mongolia is like about like 5.5 thousand feet above the sea level, and we have so many rivers and freshwater lakes, and 1/3 of the country is famous legendary Gobi Desert. So Gobi Desert is like, sometimes, old people saying, don't complain about the desert. This desert is our natural buffer zone from the threat from the southern part of Mongolia. Because Chinese and Mongols, they're fighting each other. And the Gobi Desert was our historical buffer, historical like boundary and historical challenge for the huge army. So that's why, it's not only desert, of course it's a desert, but historically it's very good protection for us, And Gobi Desert is one of the northern deserts in the world, and it's a desert, but it rains. Some of the deserts never had raindrops, and they got moisture from the air, whatever. But Gobi is very different. And a lot of people think Gobi is just covered by huge sand. But Robin, you saw there's very few part of the Gobi is covered by sand. It's mostly covered by the gravels and rocks. So, and a lot of mountains you saw there. And I would say Gobi Desert meaning is it's a huge rocky plains with the mountains, and some part has some sand dunes. And this is pretty much about my country's basic introduction. And guys, please feel ask any questions or whatever.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Boggy, for kicking it off. That was a good overview. And I love how you said how Mongolia is for the traveler and not the tourist. That's so true. It's a very rustic and immersive experience if you really want to do it well. And for people that are just unfamiliar with Mongolia, could you just talk about the different regions? You touched a little bit on the Gobi, but what are the other regions in Mongolia?
So I little bit talking about the Gobi part and central Mongolia. Central Mongolia is we call Hanga. Hanga is named after the huge mountain in central Mongolia, and it means different definition of the green valleys with the running water and some little large trees, they grown in the northern slope. So it's a combination of, it's a really great area to graze animal, but it has some trees and some rivers. So Hanga is a central Mongolia. And then as we call steppe, in Mongolian name is Tal. And steppe is grassland of Mongolia in eastern Mongolia. It doesn't have probably no mountain. And some hills, it has rolling hills, and then there's a lot of running water. But compared to central Mongolia, lesser water, it's more drier. There's huge number of the wild animals like black-tailed gazelles and Mongolian gazelles. In eastern Mongolian grassland, nowadays considered last remaining non-fenced high grassland, it has the animals. And it's like 3-4 times bigger than Serengeti National Park in Africa. And Mongolia has 4.2, 5.5 million the gazelles in Eastern Mongolian grassland. And this grassland is probably the last frontier of the biodiversity of the high grassland. And very few left in the world because of the human development. And Wyoming has very similar, but Wyoming area of the grassland is limited compared to Mongolian grassland. So I'm talking about Eastern Mongolia. So Northeast Mongolia has this grassland is continue and finishes, then meet with the huge river like Kirlin, Onon. And then this northern part of the northeastern Mongolia is ending part of the Siberian forest. So Siberian forest is thickness is becoming more scattered and ends in East North Mongolia. And so the Siberia ends in Mongolia. And so northern part, the eastern part has grassland, and northern east part has some rivers and big trees and marshy. Actually, the northeast Mongolia is very famous because it's the birthplace of the Genghis Khan. So Genghis Khan, you guys have to make the correct spelling, Genghis, not Genghis. So a lot of, Genghis is, I think it's, and because of the English literature somehow started from 1800s or 1900s, so Genghis, G, started G. But in real Mongol, Chinggis, Ching. So he's a godfather of the nation, and he united Mongolia under the state, under the law. So he's came from the northeast Mongolia, which is forests and marshy area and a lot of bugs. But it's beautiful because of this challenge, nobody come to there. Why Genghis Khan is powerful, we have joke, because he mess around and hide in his place and nobody couldn't find him. Because it's all marshy and forests, So anyhow, then we go to the northern Mongolia. So northern Mongolia is a little different than northeast Mongolia because the mountains are higher and lesser marshy. And then we have beautiful lake, it's called Hufskul, which is my homeland. So Hufskul is 2% of the world fresh water is laying down there. And it's called the sister lake of the Lake Baikal because it's connected by the river system, the Egin River. Actually, Lake Baikal used to be our territory and we lost for the Russians in 1700. So anyhow, Baikal means in Mongolian name, nature. It's a Mongolian name actually. So now, as I mentioned earlier, another I'm 500,000 probably. My brothers also live around the Lake Baikal. So anyhow, so let's go to Lake Baikal, Lake Hufskul. Then is the Hufskul and Dakhat Depression, which is another beautiful area for the lures of the fishing. You guys heard about landlocked salmon. It's called a taimen. It's a trophy fish in Mongolia. And then there's a lot of people, the fishermen, come from around the world. They come to see and catch and release in this fish in northern part of Mongolia. Then as we go into the west, and Western Mongolia is higher mountains, like average altitude of the mountains, like 2,500 meters up to 3,000 meters. And then it's between the mountains, it's huge valley, dry, arid valley, but it's good for grazing animal, and it's a home of the different ethnic groups. In the beginning, I told Mongolia, 20 different ethnic groups, probably 90% of those ethnic groups and gathered and live and sheltered in Western Mongolia. Rest of the Mongolia is like Khalkh, which is dominated ethnic group, And because of the history, the Western Mongolia, Altai Mountain was historical boundary between the nomadic tribes and Silk Road traders. So because of the Silk Road, development, the Silk Road history, many Mongols, the Mongol-speaking tribes, they sheltered in Western Mongolia. So Western Mongolia also has a lot of salted lakes, like Hergas, some of the lakes, it's a semi-salted, not really 100% salted. It's kind of drinkable, and it's home of the different wildlife, like the birds. You know, some of the birds is very extincted, you know, they're very endangered species like Eurasian pelican, you know, and other the very rare birds. They nest in Mongolia. Uses Mongolia as their like kindergarten, because the lesser populated areas, you know, pleasant for the birds to, you know, and they came from the southern East Asian countries and spent the summer in Mongolia, grew up their kids and send their kids back to the school in September. So Mongolia is a good place for the birds' life. And Western Mongolia is also home of the like rare animals, you know, snow leopards, you know, and Argali sheep and ibex, you know, and all kinds of different animals. And if you look at the Mongolian map, it's protected by the western part, Altai Mountain, and protected in the south, in the Gobi Desert. And the eastern part is high grassland. Central Mongolia is running hills with smaller mountains with the river, and northern part is lakes and rivers. So this is a pretty much a basic geographic introduction of my country.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you. That was a good overview. Where would you say, if you and your family, you know, had some time off to go anywhere in Mongolia, where is your favorite place to go?
Oh, it's a very difficult question, because my wife, you know, she likes, you know, kind of comfort, you know, so she likes go with where the water is.
Hmm.
So like as a normal Mongolian family who lives in Ulaanbaatar, when they go to the vacation inside the country,
Mhm.
they go to Lake School or any places where the water with little beach area,
Mhm.
this kind of stuff. But
Gotcha.
my personal private destination is Western Mongolia. And it's more arid, it's more rustic, it's, I don't know, it has some beautiful attractions, you know, snow-capped mountains, you know, it looks very wild, but I like it. So personally, I like to go to Western Mongolia, but not, if you ask the same question from the normal Mongolians who live in Ulaanbaatar, they say, no, you guys crazy, go to lake.
Go to the lake.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the desert, a lot of people like go to desert because we Mongols are Buddhist people. Probably 80, close to 80% of the, maybe 70 something percent of the Mongols are Buddhist, and we adopted Buddhism from Tibetans in end of the 1500. And but you know, our original traditional belief was shamanism. So shamanism is, you know, a lot of the beliefs of the shamanism and the rituals is related with the nature and all the things like this. So Gobi Desert is, we believe, it's a home of the Shambhala. So this empty area, this vast open area is something, you know, you can meditate or, you know, stay there, you know, whatever, you know. So
Mhm.
a lot of people nowadays, you know, going to Gobi because of this spiritual type of the, you know, things. It's
Mhm.
a good place to avoid if you wanted to hide somewhere. Go be.
It is very vast out
Yeah,
there. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know, and when I was out there, I feel like my favorite part was the west as well, for the mountainous regions. And
yeah,
my husband actually saw a snow leopard, which was incredible.
yeah.
Um,
This is something else, you know. And
yeah, yeah. But
you know
and
the
it's just beautiful and vast in a different way out there too.
yeah. Just, you know, quick fact is as of the number of the snow leopard in terms of the number, how many the snow leopards, the China is number one in the world. Tibet, you know, some part of the Xinjiang, you know, but in terms of the per capita per square kilometer, Mongolia is number one by the number of the snow leopards.
Mm.
And of course, it's very elusive cat. You know, the
Mhm.
statistics is very hard. Is it really accurate or not? You know, nobody knows. But you know, Mongolia is definitely, you know, we have the big number of the snow snow leopard, and then is the palace cat. Those two
Oh,
cats
yeah.
like carry the Mongolian names,
And I guess the one place that we didn't get to on our trip was up north and the reindeer herders up there.
Yeah.
That would be
Reindeer herders, is we call them chatting. Actually, beginning of the talk, I thought like we have 20 different ethnic groups,
Mhm.
two groups among them non-Mongolian speaking. One is Mongolian Kazakhs. They speak their language, Kazakh language. It's the Turkish language group. And then is this people, reindeer or Tattam people. They speak the Uyghur and Tun language, totally different language and one of the ancient language. And if you look at the world map, the reindeer herding culture goes from north, somewhere in Lapland, Finlandia, then is northern, below the Arctic Circle of the Russia, and then ends up. Then between that's it. Then is the Mongolian reindeer culture is very isolated and most southern reindeer culture in the human history.
Mhm.
So somehow there is like a lot of the guys who study their ethnographics and anthropologists, they saying, somehow because of the civil war, because of disease or whatever happened between tribal wars, they came from Siberian forest and moved, and ended up in northern part of Mongolia. I don't know, 500, 600 years ago. But nobody knows because they have very isolated people. And it's like, Mongolia is a modern country. And then as you go to there, like all of the sudden you go to like Amazon forest, the guy who speaks totally different language and isolated, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think number of the reindeer people is right now is the I think it's like 500 to 600, maybe like 1,000 is maximum. And they live in the taiga area, which is, it's very cold in the winter, deep snow, and summer is, melted the marsh area, and it's very difficult, but it's good for reindeer. It's great pasture for the reindeer because, it's the taiga, it grows this moss type of the plant, which gives good fertility for the reindeer. And those guys herd the reindeer and then use them for their riding and meat, dairy products. And nowadays, last like I would say 10, 15 years, tourism is also for them is another the life income, and they rent their horses and stuff like that. It's very unique culture, I think it's soon, I hate to say, but it soon will be disappear because it's only like I don't know 1,000 people, and the younger generation they don't speak their traditional language because they don't need it. They all speak in Mongolian, and it's sad.
That's the case with all the nomadic families across the country as well. From what I heard, at least while I was there, the younger generations are, moving to the exciting big city of Ulaanbaatar and leaving the nomadic herding life behind. And so it's a really special thing to be able to go see while it's still around.
Yeah, it's a big progress, and not the progress, the big process of the moving from countryside of Ulaanbaatar. But survival in the countryside is totally different than survival in the city. So after a while, some of the kids, not the younger families, they couldn't stand and they'll go back to the countryside.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I
Once they
think.
experience the traffic in Ulaanbaatar. Well, we have one question that's come in so far. If are the snow leopards a protected species?
Yes, they're protected, and we have protected under the red list of the Mongolia. And if someone caught, let's say poaching, and someone caught The fine is 20 million tugruk. So it's current US dollars, 20 million is about like, 8,000 US dollars fine.
Yeah.
And then it's huge risk, that's why it's protected, but the conflict is still existing. Because what's happening is number of the animals is growing last few years because of Kashmir price and beef, all this demands in outside the market. Then is the nomads, they have more animals, which means they have to chase the new pasture land, and then comes to overlapping with the territory of the snow leopard. Then is the snow leopard is, for them, is easier to hunt the domestic animal instead of the hunting argali sheep and ibex. Then those guys eat the domesticated animal. Then is nomads, they starting to hate them. Killed my life resource, da 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 da. So what's the bad thing is happening now is because this huge fine, they avoid to hunt directly because it's someone is caught. It's going to be a problem. So what they do is they put this hunting trap, burying hunting trap out in the mountain. Then in snow leopard trap it into the trap and then probably die or lose its leg or whatever. The guy who put the hunting trap, it's first of all, there's no evidence who put it. And second of all, if we caught it, he says, I put this one for the rabbit or for the other animals who is not protected, for the wolves. But how I know this goddamn snow leopard went into it, I'm not charged on it, So this kind of thing. So this is conflict is, I think, never ends. And only ending could be like solve the financial way. Like if we show the example, like in Africa, like poaching in other animals, the local guys, they show this animal for the tourists or travelers or whatever, the guys who study, and they got some income. And it's, of course, not the huge all of the sudden, but it's sustainable income. And it's not risky income, like if we brought this example for the locals, then we can show them instead of killing, instead of chasing snow leopard from the territory, you can study and show this snow leopard to the tourists, and you can rent the horses to their whatever, you make some little money, and then it's going to be sustainable income. This is, I believe. Otherwise, this conflict, this kind of conflict is everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Farmers in your country with wolves, farmers in Spain with wolves, same. But I think the only way we can stop is financial way, which is tourism makes great the input, a great, the influence for this kind of things. But I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, it's a huge incentive to keep protecting the snow leopard because it is drawing in so many tourists. I would love to know just an overview of the different seasons in Mongolia and perhaps your personal favorite.
My personal favorite is the spring because I told you it's getting warmer. But the March and April, May is the spring. June, July, August is summer. September, October, November is the fall, and December, January, February is the winter. Actually, next week by Tuesday, our spring is arriving officially. You guys heard about the Chinese New Year, yeah? Everybody says now its official name is, don't say Chinese New Year, it's Lunar New Year now. Tibet, Bhutan, Mongolia is the three country we have different horoscope. And then we celebrate this Lunar New Year next Tuesday, and we're celebrating welcoming our spring arrival officially. And next Monday is our New Year Eve, And Tuesday is everybody get together, greet each other, exchange the gifts and drink and eat the dumplings,
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of dumplings. So then this is the season. My favorite is spring because it's warmer. I don't know, it has some joy, you can see
Yeah.
little things coming out.
Yeah, it's beautiful and green and hopeful and warming. And we were there in the fall, which we really loved for different reasons. I mean, it's
Yeah.
yeah, it was a cool time for us to be there because we got to see a lot of the migrating bird species. And also the change in seasons going from summer to winter and experiencing a little bit of both. All of a sudden, one day there was just snow flying, and it was cool to see the landscape transformed. And we got to. What else is cool about being there in the season transition is if you're out where the nomadic families are, you might run into a family who is in the process of moving. And we did. We were out for a hike, and we ran into this one family that was moving from their summer fall camp to their winter camp, and we got to help them move and see what that whole process was like. And it was just a very like organic, natural meeting of
Yeah.
these people in the middle of nowhere, and it was the coolest, probably one of the most memorable parts of our trip. But yeah, I mean, Mongolia is beautiful, and there's something going on any time of the year. But what would you say is your favorite experience or activity to
I
have in
think it's
Mongolia?
the Mongolia. My favorite experience is riding horse.
Yeah.
And it's in my gene. Also, it's in terms of I'm kind of lazy, sitting horse, like kind of meditating, choo-choo, we say choo-choo is a run,
Yeah.
and then
I
is
don't know if I
hiking.
would call it meditative on those horses.
Yeah, I mean, it's like people and Mongolian horses looks like small, but they're very sturdy. They're good
Oh
for
yeah.
the long journeys. They're not fast. I mean, some of them can be fast. We have
Mhm.
National Natam Festival, which is in a horse race, 500 up to 1,000 horses in one place in a run, But those racing horses are different. But the standard Mongolian horses are very sturdy, good for long journeys. And another thing is, if you have a chance to come to Mongolia, don't call Mongolian ponies. It's insult. Because this was the transportation of the Chinggis Khan army, who was conquered like modern, huge half of the world. So for us, is Mongolian horse is a very important animal. I like the personally horse trekking and northern part of Mongolia and western Mongolia.
Mm.
And hiking is another good, but I'm kind of lazy now. Like sitting someone.
Yeah, and those horses, I mean, you can get to some epic places on horseback. Like I was blown. I mean, I grew up riding horses, and I went out to Mongolia and rode horses, and these horses are the toughest, strongest horses I think I've
Yeah.
ever been on. I mean, they will go up and down these really rugged, steep
And
mountainsides.
most important thing is food for them, for horses.
Mhm,
They
mhm.
can eat almost, it's like goat. If you bring the goat in somewhere area, they can eat anything, shrub and bush and whatever they can find, they can eat and survive. Same thing with Mongolian horses. One of the success of the Chinggis Khan's cavalry, Chinggis Khan's army, was those horses.
Mhm.
Because when you go for the military campaign, many days, you don't need to carry this, hay and special things for your horses.
Mhm, mhm.
Whatever grows in the ground, those can eat, and they're good for long journeys, and
Yeah, they're tough. They're really tough. And you can see the last remaining truly wild horses in the world in Mongolia as well, which
yeah, this is called the Przewalski horse, and in human history, mammal reintroduction wasn't that successful. I think as panda was one, another couple species, and the introduction of the extincted animal like wild horse, Przewalski horse, is very successful and recorded in human history. And they extincted and they gone in the wild, and they left very few of them in zoos in Europe, in Australia, some in America. And then 30 years ago, they brought to Mongolia, reintroduced in the wild. So right now we have 3 places in Mongolia. Now is adding another one. So far in Mongolia, probably number is up to 1,200 total into those 4 places, and they reintroduced it. And it's very successful program, and you can see it now. And then the last 30 years, you have second and third generation of the wild horses who truly born in the wild. Because the first ones they brought in zoos, they lost somehow their behavior of the wild, and because they fed by human and in some cage in narrow areas, and they lost it some of the wild behaviors. And now as they have totally wild the new generation, born and raised in Mongolia. And it's really great. You can see them in 2 in Western Mongolia, 1 in Central Mongolia, close by Ulaanbaatar. Now is new one opened up Eastern Mongolian grassland.
Okay, well, yeah, it's so cool to see them out there on their natural landscape. Yes. What would you say is if for someone visiting Mongolia, what would you say is the minimum amount of time that someone should have to really do
I think
the country justice?
at least a week,
At least a week.
because you're losing 1 or 2 days on arrive in Mongolia. Like Mongolia is now open up the flight to Japan, and Beijing is going to open up next week, and then is Hong Kong, and Turkish is the main international gate. Then is you departing from North America, and you losing like at least like 24 hours. Then is another 24 hours you departing from Mongolia to your home. So exclude those 2 days, you have to be 7 days at least in Mongolia.
Yeah.
It's a huge country, and let's say most, the well-known destination is Gobi, and to arrive into Gobi from Ulaanbaatar is at least like 1 day. It's huge area, just the one tiny part I'm talking about. So because of this logistics, because of the vastness of my country's destination, you have to be spent at least a week. If you have a time, then is more than 2 weeks are great. Between like 2 weeks inside the Mongolia, you can have pretty much good sample of how it looks like, how it's different from different parts, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. We spent 3 weeks there, and even that felt like, we could have spent so much longer too. I would almost argue like minimum of a couple weeks, but unless you just, if you have a couple regions that you want to see, you can do that probably in a week. But there's so much to see out there. So what would you say people need to be prepared for when visiting Mongolia? Do you have any advice?
Depends on seasons. Let's say the summer, which is between the end of the May, the early end of the September. So day temperature is like depends on regions, but like daytime you wear like a fleece jacket, and if it's cold you can cover up with the raincoat. And Mongolia has very strong sun, so you have to bring sunscreen, and then is the sunglasses. Almost like 300 days of Mongolia has sunny days. And then and if you go to Gobi Desert, it's a desert, so you need some little lighter clothes. And the wind is one of the challenge in Mongolia. So wind protection gear is advisable. And at night, it goes down some places, the zeros, So that's why you have to have some little warm places, not too much, the mandlap. because a lot of people, they over prepare it. Of course, it's over preparing is better than lesser preparing, but sometimes they bring like 20, 30 below like down jacket in the summer. I mean, you don't need it, in the summer. Of course, if you bring it in the winter to see the snow leopard or whatever, this is the different issue.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. It's pretty
and
much like
then,
the same latitude of like,
yeah, then
Montana,
is
Colorado-ish sort
yeah,
of environment.
yeah, and this is like standard, very basics of the clothes. And also a lot of people, the book about Mongolia, the Lonely Planet, travel books, there's some of them, they're written before Mongolia got this economical boost. I'm talking about like more than 8 or 9 years ago.
Mhm.
So they mentioned how the Mongolian food is bad. Bad means it's very basic, very primitive. You can find only the dried jerky or mutton, boiled mutton, this kind of stuff. So people sometimes read this information and they brought some lot of unnecessary food. I mean, everybody has conscious about the food when you travel to the different part of the world because they away from home. They don't know what to eat, stuff like that. It's understandable, but Ulaanbaatar is very modern city. So you can find almost anything in Ulaanbaatar. So you can buy those, whatever your preference of the food, you can buy them in Ulaanbaatar.
Mhm.
And Ulaanbaatar, we have all kinds of different restaurants, starting from Indian up to the Japanese. So Ulaanbaatar has a choices. But in the countryside, when you travel to the lodges and gear camps, they have very standard like continental dish, probably like I would say more like Eastern European. Like dinner is like it has little borscht type of the soup with next to it bread with cheese, and then is the lunch is probably some pastas and little salad like tomato salad or potato salad and a lot of meat. Mongolia is a big meat
Right.
consuming country. You know.
Yeah,
Meat is a basic diaries.
yeah, yeah. Lots of dumplings. There's
A lot
dumplings,
of
a
dumplings.
million different ways.
We have a country's biggest dumpling championship, and everybody gains weight. All the sport gyms and gym swimming pools full in Ulaanbaatar after the Lunar New Year.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We have another question about the Eagle Hunter Festival. Does it happen just one time each year, or are there multiple festivals in different
They have
areas?
multiple festivals. The one in official one is end of the October. The first weekend of the October is one official one. That's the good one because everyone goes there. Then is each counties. Bainulgi has 12 counties and they have 200 eagle hunters about, more or less. And those guys sometimes get together and says, oh, today is my county's Eagle Hunter Festival, whatever. So one in March in happening 22nd, another one is last weekend of the September. And as I know, there's a three. And then is in nearby Ulaanbaatar, they also had one in March and February just for the like showcase for the local Mongols. But I would say the one in official one, the first weekend of the October is much greater experience because of the I would say more eagle hunters and more genuine.
Mm. Yeah, I went to the one in the fall in Western Mongolia.
Yeah.
And
This is
that
the
was
one.
amazing. That was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to open it up to any questions that you all have that are here. You can either chat them or unmute yourself and shout it out. Anyone has a burning question that they want to ask Boggy.
Mhm. So this one question was about the typical foods, yeah? I just
Yes,
typed
yeah.
it there. The Mongolia is, because of the growing season is very short in Mongolia. And the rooted vegetables is only you can find in Mongolia. But nowadays nearby Ulaanbaatar, we have the greenhouses. Because, the Ulaanbaatar is, lifestyle of Ulaanbaatar is probably more modern than lifestyle in Colorado. And everybody goes to gym, eating like this green food, whatever they call, new lifestyle, blah, 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 blah. So greener and this lighter, we call lighter green, whatever, is became more fashionable now.
Mm.
So Ulaanbaatar is totally different. So let's put aside Ulaanbaatar, and countryside is, because of the growing season is so short, in Namaz, they don't grow any vegetable. And so they buy potatoes and carrot, whatever, you can keep longer period, they can eat it. So meat, let's say today is the February 17. If you go to countryside, central Mongolia, let's have a dinner. It will be dumpling. Dumpling is, the minced meat, could be mutton, could be whatever, and flavored by onion, and then is covered with the wheat and steamed it. So dumpling, and then it's from the April, when animals starting to eat the new grass and starting to have give a birth, and then they can have a milk product, more fresh yogurt, yogurt in the summer, and then they starting to have fresh meat in September. Meantime, a lot of people eat the jerk, dried the meat, and it's very basic. But Ulaanbaatar is totally different. Like in the morning, I am eating this thing. It's a curd. It's a curd is, you can't keep the yogurt more than let's say 3 days. After 3 days, yogurt is getting too bitter. And then as you squeeze out the moisture from the yogurt and put it into the different shape like this, and dried it in the sun or whatever, and then you can eat it.
Yeah.
And then this the moisture you squeeze it out from the yogurt is you can use for cleansing your stomach. Don't drink in the office. Just otherwise you run every 20 minutes.
Is,
Back.
is that like the goat
Mongolian
vodka or
snack.
the
Yeah. So the countryside people eat the fried donut, little fried bread, and this one, and the dinner is big. Dinner is like boiled mutton, boiled beef ribs, and breakfast is leftovers from the dinner. Mongols never had a tradition to have 3 meals in a day. They lunch and breakfast, something like this, leftovers from dinner, and then go for herding and grazing animal, come back in dinner and have dinner family together. And now as you eating 3 meals per day, and you become like big Mongol like me. I hate my bellies,
Yeah, well, we ate very well while we were there, but it was a lot of it's amazing the different ways that you can use milk, like turning it into the cheese, the curds,
Yeah.
you can be fermented mare's milk is a big thing out there. They turn it into goat vodka, like all sorts of different variations. But it's all delicious. Foggy, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you think is important to share?
Not really. And, like, of course, the COVID, whatever situation is over. So Mongolia is no more required any vaccine or anything. And then is, when you travel in Mongolia, also like people prefer Mongols I'm talking about in the countryside, like you have to bring some cash, to buy your personal stuff. But the Ulaanbaatar in the bigger cities, the credit card, this works, it's become very modern.
Yeah.
You will be amazed. And 20 years ago, when I was rafting in Western Mongolia, it's a little story. And then there's the guy, there was 6 rafts, and then, we're rafting in a river. And one guy, he always late behind the convoy because he was taking a picture. This Polaroid picture?
Yeah.
To the locals. When we rafting the West Mongolia, in whole while they heard some white guys rafting on the river. So kids, they lining up in the shore of the river, just like army guys, standing like this and waiting for us. And then they heard that some guy is taking the Polaroid, they giving the picture. And it was like, and then because this guy, he has a Polaroid, he has to be taking picture, give it to the kids, and that's what takes us hours. He always late, and then his trip leader, he was mad at him. Says, "Why are you late? It's we have to be all together. It's dangerous. You go behind the." And he says, "Yeah, I understand this part, but after 20 years, when you go back to Mongolia, those kids, they will maybe have the modern photo apparat in the camera and shoot you image and post in New York Times. This will be after 20 years." So nowadays, exactly, when you raft to Mongolia, it's beautiful, but the kids with the cell phone taking your picture.
Yeah.
So this is how it's Mongolia changing, good way, bad way, whatever, It's
Yeah.
very modern country, and Ulaanbaatar is any big cities acceptable of the cards, credit card, whatever.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Boggy. And right at the top of the hour, so I feel like I should start wrapping things up here. I will also mention that I did a blog post about Mongolia that's posted on the Explorer X website recently. I'll post the link to that in the chat right now in case you want to check it out. And we'll also send a link to this in the with the recording in an email to everyone who couldn't make it live. And also keep your eyes out for our next announcement for our next webinar for a different country. But thank you, Boggy, so much for being here. This was so fun. And thank you everyone for joining, and hope to see you all at the next one.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a nice Lunar New Year. You guys celebrate by email, like you can look from the internet. There's Tibetans, Mongols, Bhutanese celebrating the New Year next week.
Yes. We'll celebrate.
Okay. Goodbye, guys. Thank you.